Hello and welcome to LPTV. My name's Troy Rafferty and I'm here today with my special guest and partner, Kim Lambert, and we're here to talk today about heart devices. Kim, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Kim, there's been a lot of discussion in the media and the news recently over the last really year and a half or so about heart devices. If you could, tell the viewers a little bit about what, when we say heart devices, what we're talking about and what kind of problems they have arisen because of the heart devices.
Sure. The heart devices that are subject to these recalls or advisory notes are either pacemakers or cardiac defibrillators, are primarily what's at issue. The pacemakers are implanted into patients who have experienced low heartbeats, and so the pacemaker helps keep the heart pacing appropriately. The cardiac defibrillators, which are also at issue, are on the opposite end, and they pick up what's called tachycardia or a rapid heartbeat, and they shock the heart so that the heart slows down so that you can avoid cardiac arrest or sudden cardiac death or something like that.
Are there different manufacturers of these heart devices?
There are. Primarily over the last year and a half, there's been about 300,000 devices recalled.
And what kind of complications or problems arise because of these defective heart devices?
Well, there's a number. If we'll take Medtronic first, Medtronic's defect is with regard to a battery depletion issue. And what some of the studies and some of the research has found is that Medtronic probably experienced through their bench testing this defect or were known of this defect back in 2003 and actually submitted additional supplements to the FDA to produce additional devices with this defective battery and continue to sell those. A year or so later, they then submitted a new PMA offering changes to a battery, stating its cause was because we wanted to make the battery better, or we had known defects with the battery depletion. So what has happened is a suit was filed against Medtronic based on those claims that the battery's depleted. So with Medtronic, it's a battery depletion issue, and when the device is called on to send a shock to a person's heart because of this rapid heartbeat, the shock doesn't come through because the battery short circuits the rest of the device. Flipping over to Guidant, Guidant has about 3 different types of defects. The first defect being an internal short circuit, this is similar to what Medtronic experienced. They also have a memory error to where it doesn't keep up with the memory. When you're dealing with pacemakers, if it's pacing according to what the heart has been experienced over the last few times. So if the memory goes out, it's difficult for the pacemaker to operate appropriately. They also had a latching problem that would make the device not let you know when certain problems are arising. These devices can be set to send signals if it's not working properly, and the latching effect causes problems with that.
Well, in terms of, let's talk about this, because you mentioned something about Medtronic's perhaps knowing about these problems or the depletion problem as early as 2003. So, I mean, are we seeing here again what we've seen in the past and what we've talked about in the past with these manufacturers and the pharmaceutical industry and the medical device manufacturers basically hiding some of these defects from both the consumers and the FDA and the doctors that are implanting them?
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, when a group of plaintiffs filed suit against Medtronic alleging these facts, Medtronic filed what's called a summary judgment motion. And basically Medtronic's argument was that they were not liable because the FDA, the federal government, had approved the device, and that there is what's called a legal principle called preemption, and that any claims brought by plaintiffs were preempted because the FDA had approved these devices. But what's unfortunate is that although the FDA approved it, the FDA was not made aware of, or allegedly not made aware of, these bench testings and these defects in the devices. You know, flipping over to Guidant, it's the same situation, and they knew as early as 2002, and they continued to sell the old devices to these plaintiffs who unknowingly accepted a device that they thought were going to save their lives but had these known defects in them.
So let me get this straight. So the manufacturer knows there's a problem, knows that the people that are getting these implants put in need these in order to survive, in order to live, and they know there's a defect with them, but they don't do anything to tell the people about them, and they're knowingly allowing these doctors to implant these devices in their hearts, knowing that these could end up killing people.
That's correct. They didn't tell the doctor. They didn't tell the client. Medtronic, not until February of 2005 did they come forward. Guidant not until probably June or later in 2005. And both of these companies knew or should have known, definitely knew with regard to probably the end of 2003, that these devices had defects.
So in the meantime, and their only defense to this, what they've raised as their main defense to this is, well, the FDA approved it, is basically what you're saying. That's what the preemption is the FDA approved it, so we shouldn't be held liable.
That's right. The FDA approved it.
And at the same time, they're either hiding the ball from the FDA, or, as we've talked about in the past, the FDA is unable or simply unwilling to basically regulate and enforce the regulations against the pharmaceutical industry or the medical, in this case, the medical device companies.
That's right. It's a very, very unfortunate situation for these patients that are receiving these devices, hoping to save their life.
This is a recurring nightmare for consumers. I mean, every time we turn around, that's what's happening with the pharmaceutical industry, and the Medical Device Act. I mean, how are consumers supposed to be protected in these situations?
There's got to be some tightening of the ropes at the FDA, and there's also got to be some liability placed on these manufacturers that are putting these devices out there. If they're continued to be allowed to put these devices out there without having any punishment with regard to what they are doing, then there's not going to be any control.
Well, I know there's been a lot of people that have, for instance, called and said, well, my heart device has been replaced, or I've had it taken out now and replaced it. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about what's happening with that and what they should do if that's happening?
You've got clients that go in, patients that go in to have their device replaced and come out with severe infections, come out with stroke, come out with heart attacks, or the device fails and doesn't go off, and then they go into a heart attack. You've got a wide range of injuries that may be approached or may be presented to a patient to say, this is just part of the surgery, or this is a risk of the surgery, when actually you're giving a patient no option. The patient either has the defective device or they go in and take these risks of these surgeries.
So what basically the manufacturers would like to have happen is say, oh, well, okay, you caught us. We'll go ahead and just replace your defective one that we had implanted in your body, putting you at risk for heart attack or heart arrhythmia, death, and then leave us alone.
Pretty much. Basically, that's their argument. We've paid for you. You were going to have it replaced when the battery ran out naturally, but what they're not telling you is that was 7 or 8 years, where now it could be a year or two, and they're having to have it done early on.
Well, Kim, thank you for joining us here on the show. It looks like our old friend, the pharmaceutical industry and the medical device manufacturers, are up to their same old tricks. And thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for our next installment of LPTV.